Everybody, how's it going? It is Chris Flowers. I'm the executive producer of the Biz Coach Show. And we have the one, the only, Eric T. Whitmoyer. What's up, buddy?
How you doing, Chris? Oh, there we go.
I want you to feel better.
All right, hold the applause, please.
Please, everybody, please keep it down. Yes, Eric is in the building. Yes. What's up, buddy?
Good deal. How you doing this week?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. I'm ready to talk about some rogue agents using AI when they shouldn't.
Oh, man.
A little shadow AI we're going to talk about.
Shadow AI. There you go.
Shh, be very quiet.
Yeah, so interesting topic this week. Just as we're, as you know, this week we started our first weekly AI coaching to our clients. So we actually have a designated call every week for an hour where we talk specifically about AI and AI implementation into small business. Now, that ranges pretty dramatically because we have clients in our smaller programs, our basic programs that are solopreneurs, and we go up to 10, 15, $20 million companies. And all of them are using AI differently in each of their different businesses. So identifying, what were some of the most specific things that our clients really needed to get a handle on and understand. And quite honestly, after months and months of encouraging people, hey, you really need to get on board with AI, we've identified that a big problem is that it's fear of the unknown. I don't know what to do, so I don't do anything. And so as an attempt to kind of cajole them out of that mode, we've introduced this course that we offer every week at 11 o'clock on Mondays, 11 o'clock Pacific time on Mondays, where we spend an hour talking about AI implementation in their business. So it ranges from, how to set up your ChatGPT to understand who you are, how to have a conversation with it. I've actually got some really amazing tools and resources I'm putting together for them. And then a series of developmental programs where we'll teach them how to use the prompting better. As you've heard me say many times, it's, using any AI solution. It is your ability to prompt it, which is no different than an employee and your ability to give them good direction. If you have an employee, you give them good direction, you typically get relatively good output. If you have an employee and you give them terrible direction and they don't know inherently what they should be doing, you're going to get a less than desirable result and you're going to be disappointed. But the disappointment is really on you, right, as the leader, because you didn't give them good direction. It is the exact same thing with ChatGPT. And more people are talking about that, is identifying, how are we communicating with ChatGPT to get the result, or whatever LLM you're using. Regardless, the point is you want to LLM, large language model. So just make sure. But the
good call.
Yeah. But the key here is to identify, as it relates to AI, not only these basic parameters around ChatGPT or Perplexity or any of these other software programs that are out there, but it's also identify the literally thousands of AI solutions that are being created with these LLMs behind them, right, that are designed to do a specific task. And that's a little bit of what we're going to talk about today. So with the advent of AI over the last 3 years, more and more things have it's impacted business. And, if I haven't said it enough times, I'll say it again today. Whatever you have thought about technological advances in the past over the last, let's call it 30 years, right? So I'm in my mid 50s. Over the last 30 years, I've seen technology impact business in a lot of ways, right? But it hasn't been at the rate, nor has it had the veracity that AI has had and will have in the going future, because it's growing at a rate that we can't even fathom it. Even the people that are doing AI on a regular basis can't fathom how quickly it's making an impact and how quickly it's changing. A lot of that's going to be determined by how quickly it's adopted. And that's why we're talking about what we're talking about today. So you referenced the shadow AI. Right. Number of new articles. It was actually reported on 3 different companies that I quickly identified. It was Axios, Tech Radar, and Investopedia all acknowledged concerns around shadow AI and or the business paralysis of AI in the small business application. Now, when I say small business, I'm generally speaking probably not the solopreneur, somebody who's got a half a dozen to a dozen employees to maybe a few hundred employees, right? Could potentially be a few thousand, depending, where you draw the line on small business. But either way, the point is, a lot of these companies have started with or began to kind of implement AI, but then they started running into concerns about, well, what about this and what about that, and like our employees are using this to communicate, our employees are using this to write their emails, our employees are using this to plug in whatever you want to plug in, create their ad copy, whatever. Some of the challenges with that is the companies unwittingly, unknowingly, kind of led into AI thinking, okay, this is going to be great. We've heard all these phenomenal things that AI is going to do. But because they probably didn't have a game plan of exactly how they want to introduce it, what happened was the rogue employees started running off and doing things. But worse yet, here's what happened likely, is they started using it for different tools and resources. The company realized, it's not exactly how we want it to be leveraged. It's not how we want it to be utilized. We don't have guardrails on this. And so the issue is now, with all the things that AI could do as an employer, as an organization, I'm realizing these employees can do a lot of different things, but we're not sure how much of we want to let the employees use AI to do it. So they're putting the brakes on, and they're like, hold up. Yeah, we don't want to use AI for that. So they're choosing to challenge the employees not to do that. But here's what's interesting about that. The employers are like, wait a minute, this makes my job way easier. Right. I don't have to recreate this stuff. I can use it to build out spreadsheets. I can use it to create content. It could be written content. It could be graphic content. Depending on what your business space is, there's a lot of things that you could be leveraging AI for, and people aren't because. And I think it's, again, most business owners. Remember this: 49.7% of all businesses are owned by somebody over the age of 55 or older. Mm-hmm. Those are likely the ones that are a little bit more staunch about adopting AI, right? Just because we're a natural tendency to be slow to adopt technology. Whereas people under the age of 55, or more specifically under the age of 45, a little bit more willing to adopt technology, generally speaking, right? So that said, the business owners, which are generally those older demographics, they are slower to adopt it. And they're like, hold on, we want to make sure that we do it right, which is probably the right thing to do. Right. However, to your point, right, the employees are like, yeah, but this makes my job easier. So I'm just going to down my own ChatGPT account, and I'm going to do it for this. I'm going to use it for that. And I'm going to train it to do this.
And that goes back to what you said before, clear message from leadership.
Yep.
Okay. And they got to be they got to lead from the front, not lead from the back.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So that's the thing. So these employees are getting out ahead of them. Like, hey, I'm going to use this tool. It hasn't been issued by the company. We haven't set the guidelines or the SOP. We haven't set the SOP company wide around using these particular tools. So I'll ask for forgiveness rather than permission.
That's right.
And go for it. Where as the leader, if you don't want a certain thing done, you should say, no, we are not doing this. This is our brand, not yours,
right?
Mine. I signed the front of the check. Here's how we're going to do it.
Right.
You got two choices: walk out or follow the SOP. But the leader's got to come from the front and lead from the front and put that message out there. Kind of like you said, like using ChatGPT, it's your input.
Yep.
The leader's got to have the input with the employees. Hey, look, okay, you want to use this? Well, wait till we get some SOP around it. Then we'll go.
Yeah, there you go. And I think that's the key. I think there's two things to that. One, let's wait till we get an SOP on this and get it in place. But then I have to make that a priority. I can't drag my feet.
Correct.
This is coming. Yeah, exactly. This is coming too fast and too hard.
AI is just coming.
That's
like
it.
This,
AI is an 108-mile fastball, and if you got to start swinging as soon as the arm moves. Otherwise, you're not going to catch it. Right? I mean, there's just no way. You cannot sit on this and take weeks and months to create SOPs around AI. So to your point, as the employer, hey, this is our guideline. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. But then I got to act immediately. I cannot sit on my butt and wait for the solutions to come together. And the other piece that I add to that is you can't knock the employee, because if the employer's doing this, they're adopting it for a reason. Now, is it always with the best intentions? Maybe, maybe not. But the truth of the matter is, generally speaking, I would say more often than not, the employees are doing this because they're like, hey, this makes my job easier. Why shouldn't I be able to do it? Because here's the next problem. If you as an employer say no and you kibosh it, and they're looking over their buddy that works at another company and their friend at this company and their friend at that company, they're all embracing AI and you're not, they're like, well, this is dumb. And what we do know about millennials, what we do know about millennials and Gen Zs, if you don't give me a good why as to why you're not allowing me to use a tool or a resource that seems like it'd be valuable, I'm just going to walk. I don't need to play that game, right? I'll go work with my buddy over that other company where they're using it because it's dumb. So as an employer, you have the responsibility to act quickly, but two, you have to be very clear about why you're doing what you're doing. And if there's a legitimate reason, that's fine, right? But then you need to explain the why, because the one thing about our generation, Gen X, we asked why, but when we were told no, we said, okay, I don't really like it, but I'm going to go along with it. Well, the next series of generations after us are kind of like, okay, well, thanks, but no thanks.
You may want to check with my commanding officers on some of that, because they might have a difference of opinion.
Well, in your particular case, that might have been fair. Hey, I've openly admitted I was probably the worst employee that you could have possibly had during our generation. So, because I would ask why about everything. So I get it. I'm that guy, right? I think that's why I can appreciate the millennials and Gen Zs with that particular perspective, because I never understood, why don't you challenge the status quo? Because that's the only way you get better, is by challenging the status quo, right? So,
but to your point as well, I said, being the leader, being the guy, explain the why, and explain again, especially, coming from a lending background, there are certain parameters that we
cross those boundaries
to follow.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. And if we go over that, somebody's going to jail. We're losing a charter. You think you're going to go work for your buddy over there? Guess what? We get violated or something like that on a Fed charter or something like that. You're going nowhere.
Right. Yeah. Great point.
With that, so explain the why. I said, look, we're in it depends. Depending on what industry you're in. So I'm talking about lending. But if you're in a highly regulated industry, here's why we can't use an open source product like this because of XYZ. And yeah, it sucks. And like I said, especially trying to turn something government around, like trying to turn a freaking aircraft carrier, as far as that goes. But at the same time, like you said, you can't sit on it. You got to make this a priority and make this happen, because then if you don't, then you're getting left behind.
Yeah, period. Absolutely. So a couple of key points that I thought I'd point out here. A lot of companies are obviously dumping money into AI. But the results are not coming the way they anticipated, which is another interesting component. I'm going to tell you that my belief is, one, we don't use the tool correctly because we don't know how to prompt it if we're using some kind of LLM. And if we're using a software that does the prompting on our behalf, we probably didn't do enough due diligence to identify that, okay, this solves this problem. But remember, the age-old story is, the best thing a coach can do is solve the problem that you currently have, which then leads you to the next problem that you've identified. Okay, well, now you solved my lead generation problem. Now I have a conversion problem because I'm not closing enough sales, right? All right, well, now we need to fix that problem. Well, then we fix the sale problem. What's the next problem we have to fix? Well, now we have to fix the fulfillment problem, right? And so it's just this progressional thing. So I think what happens is people were getting these tools in place, and they're just creating the next need, but they're doing it way faster, right? Because of AI and its ability to get results. You got tons of leads now. Well, now I need people to filter these leads, right? And what does that process look like? And so we need to go, okay, well, now we need to create the next tool for the next solution.
Well, again, there's another solution for ChatGPT. Like I said, if you need an SOP, put in the proper inputs for the parameters. Hey, we have to meet these regulations.
There you go.
Parameters. Make me up an SOP. There you go.
Yeah, I think that ironically, I think that that's a lot of the solutions are there. We just have to slow down long enough to identify what it is. But I think this is a good example of, we see different organizations where leadership wants to go really fast in some cases, but it's like, if you don't listen to the ops team and make sure you dot your I's and cross your T's, you're just going to fall flat on your face because you're going to do something dumb that's going to expose you, or it's going to create a gap in the business that you can't absolve in a short period of time, and so then it creates a bottleneck. But all of those scenarios are actually, if you take the time to do your due diligence in advance, and this is, again, goes back to the strategy, work on your business, not in your business all the time, right? And as a leader, right, regardless of what your leadership role is, if you have any kind of team that you're responsible to, you should be spending a minimum of 10% of your time strategically thinking about what you're doing next, as opposed to reacting to the shit that's going wrong that you have to fix.
Correct.
And that's by far and away what I see. I mean, I've lived in middle management, upper executive management, almost the entire part of my 25-year career in the wireless industry. And during that time, I can tell you over and over and over, it was me constantly reminding my directors saying, hey, if you're not taking the time to slow down and think about your business proactively, it's just going to happen to you. And then you're going to be reacting to it. And either it's going to eat you up and spit you out, or you're going to constantly feel like you're just on the run all the time with no break. And I said, this business will do that to you if you don't know how to manage it.
Right. So anyway, another military saying that we have smooth is fast.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely. Great point. Couple other things that the employees, we talked about, they're sidestepping the bureaucracy and just going and creating their own tools, right? This, what we're calling shadow AI, right? So they're using it, even though the company says they're not supposed to be. So what we're creating is this challenge of a grassroots innovation, right? You and I are coming up with these really great ideas between us because we don't believe in the man that got the right idea, right? At the same time, that's very likely creating a regulatory ticking time bomb, right? So just a matter of time until something comes out because we created some content that we weren't supposed to or whatever. And a good example of that is anybody in the financial services industry. Like they can't, they're so closely regulated as far as what kind of content they can create and what they can say in the content. But if you build it correctly, to your point a minute ago, I can say, these are the boundaries. We cannot cross these boundaries. And then it's just quality control. Make sure you're making sure that verifying the content is good. But you could make it a lot faster. And so if there is a quality control valve that you have to manage, right, this has got to be approved before I can send it out. But you can create it 10 times faster than you could before. So now it's just a matter of, okay, how do we accelerate the approval process, which can be a little more challenging, but that's an important component, right? Because the people in the financial services industry would really benefit from some of the stuff that you can create with AI, because you can put the boundaries in there in advance and say, we can't say this, we can't make these assumptions, we can't, whatever. And now I can create content that I can actually leverage and utilize.
Correct.
Couple other things, top-down AI investment versus bottom-up use. So lots of people, this is very common of companies, lots of people at the bottom are on their own figuring out, hey, this is really cool, we should have this. And I've seen this happen in many organizations. At the top, the challenge is the executive teams are, again, usually more what's the word I want to use? Slower to adopt.
Slow to change.
Yeah, slower to adopt technology. And so consequently, what ends up happening is we get into a situation where the staff, the field, is taking on these technologies. There we go. The staff is taking on the technologies, and they're implementing, or at least playing with, and without any guidance from the top down, it's creating more work, right? In addition to, because now they're not again, the leadership is not coming out and saying, this is why, this is how, this is weak. We're going to use it. This is how we need to use it, right? And put parameters to it. But I think there's a couple of key things. One is, as a leadership group, get out in front of it, give clear indication why or why not, and draw boundaries on where you can use it, and make sure that you're clearly identifying what that would be the best use case. And I think one of the other things that I remember reading in the article, businesses aren't paralyzed by the actual threat of the AI solutions. It's the what now, right? We've started doing this. We've realized now that it's created this challenge, whatever that challenge is, and how do we adjust it now, right? Because it's one thing if I'm out in front of it, like we talked about. Now the problem is the cat's out of the bag. How do I pull it back, right? How do I pull that back in and draw that back in? So having a clear communication, pulling people aside, and getting a message out to the team, and making sure that you're doing that proactively as well is really important.
I think it's also fundamental for leadership too, is to, like I said, obviously you hire good people around you, right? So you hire talented people, listen to them.
Yes.
Great and point. When they say, "Hey, I have this thing. I don't know, I'm using this particular tool to do this particular thing, and look how much better the content came out. Look how much faster we were able to produce, and we were able to turn this thing around." So you, as the leader, have to be able to accept that somebody, and a lot of egos, or a lot of things get in the way of, like, oh, I can't let this person's not a C level blah 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 executive or something. Like, it's like, yeah, but they're the ones doing the work, so you should be listening, and you should be able to adapt with that, or like that, like, get your ego out of it,
right?
So as long as you can do that as a leader as well, because you've been a part of it too, where if they didn't think of it, then it's not
a legitimate idea.
right where that's not going to fly.
That's not going to fly. Yeah. And it's funny because as much as we talk about that from a leadership perspective and how that leadership doesn't work these days, never did, but it really doesn't work now because people just opt to walk, right? I think what's interesting about that is that it's becoming even more obvious how much of an understanding, or how much of a gap in understanding about what effective leadership will get, what kind of results it'll get. It's so in your face now that you can't deny it. And the irony of something like AI that's coming as fast as it is, like we talked about, that 108 mile fast, like literally you have to start swinging now, right? You cannot wait until, you come, whether he comes over the top or he comes to the side, as far as pitch. Right? Anyway, I think it's really important for people to identify that that's an important component. Another thing we talked about, and you started going to this path, is that talk about specific advice for the coaches and leaders, which is create AI safe zones, right? First and foremost, if you're in a leadership role and you have employees and there's middle management or whoever these key people are, you hired them because you believed in them. So give them the ability to give you that feedback and that insight. And if you don't have the understanding, the technological understanding to embrace that, then surround yourself, create that AI safe zone where you can bring people in and say, okay, show us what you want to do so I can see what the end result looks like. And then let's approve it from there. But to just say across the board, no, you're just going to create more problems, and you're going to accelerate that shadow AI. They're just going to keep doing it. They're not going to stop, right? It's too easy. It's too prevalent, and everybody.
Yeah, that, or you lose the talent.
Yeah, well, that's
you lose the talent of people.
Yep, absolutely. So, but then at least then you can build your policy frameworks around something that's grounded in legitimate insight and feedback, as opposed to just using, even if it's not ego, if it's just something as simple as ignorance, and I don't mean it in a derogatory way. Just, I don't know, I don't understand, so I say no, right? So allow yourself, your talented people, to educate you and take in that insight. A good leader knows where to get the information for the things that they need to know, right? So I think that's an important component for them to really kind of embrace that. And then lastly, examples of organizations that turn shadow AI into successful solutions. I mean, AI is not that new, quite honestly. It's just the implementation of AI at a very low cost, meaning more people have access to it than ever. That's where the acceleration really comes into play. So, if I could say it again, it ain't going to slow down. It's going to accelerate. I mean, I literally watched a show the other day with I don't remember his name, but the podcast with Stephen Bartlett, and in the podcast, he's an engineer, software engineer, and he was suggesting, with all his knowledge in AI, and he's been doing AI information for 15 years or something like that. He was saying that as this evolves, he goes, we can't predict where it's going to go. He goes, I've been doing this for 15 years. I can't tell you where it's going to go or how fast it's going to get there. He goes, what I can tell you is whatever projections we make, they're going to be wrong, and they're going to be longer than we anticipate. Because you can't, because that's the whole thing. When you develop something that thinks for itself, it begins to, evolve in a way that you couldn't anticipate. I mean, for the longest time we had technology, we built it on, the whole idea of AI was built on the idea, I'm giving it information to work off of, right? So it's literally, it would be the equivalent of a student who has unlimited capacity to learn, but I only give them the information that I want them to have. Then I take another student who has the same unlimited capacity, and I literally give them everything they can possibly access, right? And now all of a sudden, how much faster, if they have the same capacity to learn, and one has unlimited opportunity, the other one only has the stuff that I give them, math, science, whatever, and it's only in the textbooks that I provide to you, which is, ironically, if you think about it, the way our education system was designed. We only give you this information because that's all we want you to have. The people that think outside the box, right, they went and found information elsewhere. And now, because it's on the internet, you can get it from anywhere, and you can get it even faster now with AI. So the way that this has come together, I don't think that anybody can project. And I think any business owner who isn't getting on board with this, it's a huge mistake, because, that's why we started our training that we started, because these owners can't afford to not know and understand how to use it.
Here comes Skynet.
Well, based on that interview that gentleman with Stephen Bartlett had, that engineer on, based on what he said, that was literally what he projected, which was, and that would be the, I can't remember the term of the AI. It's where it thinks for itself, like the
self-learning.
It's there's a certain, is it AGI? I think it's whatever that is. But that level of technology, he's fighting it to challenge us to not allow that to happen, which I agree with. He goes, everything else that we have, the stuff that we have in place today, that's fine, because it's got a cap on it. There's, regardless of how quickly it can learn, it's still got a cap to it. But as long as we allow it to make its own decisions, that becomes a whole other conversation. So, but that's less business related and probably a whole other topic for another day. So,
I got to put the tinfoil hat on.
Yeah, we'll get the guy from the Y-Files on the show, and him and Hecklefish. We'll have them come on and talk about it.
Yeah. Oh, that'll go a whole different way. Right.
Awesome. Well, that's what I got for us today.
All right, man. So like I said, hey, as a leader, get out ahead of it. Don't sit there in the back. Don't lead from behind. You got to lead from the front, man.
Yep.
You're the one signing the front of the check. So like I said, make sure you're getting out ahead of this thing. And if it costs you a couple rounds of golf, then hey, you just got to do it, man. Get in there and make it happen. Don't let your employees sit there dragging your feet.
Yep, exactly. Yep. And trust those people. Trust those people that you hired, and let them show you if that's what it needs to be, so that you can make better decisions.
Absolutely.
Yep. Agreed.
All right. Great show, my brother.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Should we? We got to make sure, because if we don't give him this, then he gets upset.
Oh, there you go.
We got to give Eric his
I feel better now. That's my dopamine hit. Okay. That's my dopamine.
All right, we're out.